A red-haired woman offers a sincere apology before a pile of defeated combatants. The Sage of the Rainbow Cross declares an urgent family meeting. He spirals into an existential crisis, questioning the reason for his existence. His party is a collection of legends: the strongest hero, an all-powerful witch, a master thief, and a peerless priestess. They stand together as a perfect hero party, radiating talent and ability. In their shadow, Cross feels he possesses absolutely nothing of value. He views himself as a heavy burden, dragging the entire team down. Yet the women of the party completely dote on him, much to his confusion. Flustered by their affection, he suddenly demands they stop teasing him. The priestess simply offers a gentle smile, inviting him to relax and feel at ease. The master thief enthusiastically offers to give him a massage. The witch presents a suspiciously labeled potion, promising it will cure his fatigue. Suddenly, the strongest hero, Claude, bursts onto the scene, questioning their actions. Cross tries to deflect, reminding everyone that Claude was supposed to be on scouting duty. But Claude ignores him, fiercely declaring his own intention to take care of Cross. Cross can only watch as his party casually dispatches a horde of over 150 monsters without him. Yet the hero is still amazed that Cross managed to defeat 50 monsters all by himself. They praise his good nature, but Cross dismisses it as a hollow compliment for the useless. He remains utterly baffled, unable to comprehend why they shower him with such affection. Overwhelmed but resolute, Cross quietly vows to himself that he will try harder. Determined to be useful, Cross announces he'll gather ingredients for dinner. He gently turns down the thief's eager offer to help, insisting he can handle it alone. The hero watches him leave with a look of genuine concern, urging him to be careful. As soon as Cross is out of earshot, the hero turns to the others with an intense expression. The entire party falls silent, their gazes fixed on their departing sage. The silence is broken as they all erupt in a shared moment of adoration for Cross. They immediately begin gushing over his every recent action, from his bravery to his blushing face. A fierce competition breaks out as they boast about their minor interactions with him. Their friendly rivalry escalates into a full-blown, menacing standoff. Suddenly, a colossal explosion erupts from their campsite, stopping Cross in his tracks. Cross misinterprets the massive explosion as his party's energetic training session. Feeling inspired by their supposed diligence, he resolves to push himself even harder. He walks through the woods, assuming his friends must be exhausted from the day's battles. With a confident smile, he decides to cook them a fantastic meal to lift their spirits. Back at the campsite, the party sits in silence, realizing Cross has been gone for a long time. The hero immediately panics, jumping to the conclusion that Cross has been abducted. The women share his look of absolute horror, their minds racing with terrible possibilities. Just as they consider burning the entire forest down, Cross reappears, apologizing for being late. He begins to explain himself, gesturing towards the bounty he gathered in the tall grass. The party immediately swarms him, their frantic questions revealing just how worried they were. He proudly reveals a massive bounty of ingredients, cheerfully announcing his plan to cook a feast for everyone. The entire party is struck completely silent, utterly stunned by the sheer volume of food he gathered. Overcome with emotion, the hero and priestess are moved to tears by his incredible kindness. Cross looks down with a guilty expression, realizing he once again made his friends worry about him. Soon after, a magnificent spread of perfectly grilled fish, skewers, and salads is laid out before them. The witch stares at her plate, worried she's become so spoiled by his food that she'll starve when the journey ends. Meanwhile, the thief savors every bite with a look of pure bliss, completely captivated by the delicious taste. The others unanimously agree that his cooking easily surpasses even the most exquisite royal court cuisine. Cross laughs off their praise, happily promising to keep cooking for them forever, causing the women to blush. The hero demonstrates his absolute faith by eating random mushrooms, forcing a panicked Cross to intervene. With the day's excitement over, Cross announces it's time for everyone to get some rest. As his party sleeps, the thief unconsciously praises his hard work in her dreams. The witch blushes while dreaming, happily reliving what she considers a fun date with him. Even the stoic hero dreams of Cross, showing a gentle, protective concern. The priestess is also lost in a dream, her flushed expression hinting at a very intimate fantasy. But while they all dream of him, Cross is secretly training, pushing his body to its absolute limit. He believes that simply cooking for the party will never be enough to prove his worth. With frantic determination, he swings his sword, desperate to become faster and stronger. The thought of remaining useless forever fills him with a deep, motivating dread. He screams into the night, vowing that he will absolutely never give up on his goal. His one true desire is to fight as their equal on the battlefield. The following morning, the hero's first thought is of Cross's condition. Unseen by the sage, his party has already gathered to discuss him. The thief reports that he's still pushing himself just like every other night. They worry he'll continue until dawn, returning completely worn out as usual. The hero wishes Cross would simply admit his struggle. He darkly confesses they would abandon the world itself if it meant easing his burden. But the thief knows his stubborn kindness would never allow him to make such a request. Therefore, they all silently renew their vow to protect him, no matter the cost. With their sage safely leading the way, the party continues their journey, shielded from all harm. They carved a path of victory, defending villages and dismantling the Demon King's fortresses. With each step forward, humanity's triumph seemed more and more certain. Even one of the Demon King's fearsome 4 heavenly kings stood in their way, unleashing a furious assault. But the party stands completely unfazed, having already dealt with all 4 of the Demon King's top commanders. The hero turns to Cross with a proud smile, acknowledging they've almost reached their final goal. Cross shares his determination, realizing only the Demon King stands between them and saving the world. Their journey finally leads them to the grand capital of the human kingdom. An enormous crowd erupts in cheers, celebrating the long-awaited arrival of their saviors. The adoring public showers them with praise, calling out to the hero and even proposing to the priestess. The king himself greets them with open arms, personally welcoming the hero to his kingdom. The hero respectfully kneels before the king, who graciously tells him to be at ease. Leaning in, the king changes the subject, his expression turning more serious. But the hero is resolute, declaring their readiness to face the Demon King immediately. The king thoughtfully suggests they rest while the kingdom handles the final preparations. His eyes suddenly snap open with an intense gaze, catching Cross's attention. He generously promises to provide the party with anything and everything they require. The king then turns his focus to Cross, noting the heavy burden the sage appears to carry. However, not everyone in the crowd shares the king's welcoming sentiment. Cross overhears the public's cruel whispers, branding him as useless dead weight. The sage is visibly stunned, his worst insecurities confirmed by the jeering crowd. He grimaces, realizing that no matter where they go, public opinion of him remains the same. Unaware of their silent fury, Cross tries to calm his party down as they seethe with rage. He desperately holds back the hero, pleading with him to contain his anger until they are in private. Safely at the inn, the hero casually suggests destroying the entire kingdom, much to the thief's amusement. Cross tries to reason with them, arguing that the insults don't matter and that the king had a point. But the hero immediately refutes his statement, his expression firm and unwavering. He looks at Cross with genuine affection, confessing that Cross is the very reason he can be a hero. The entire party stands united behind this sentiment, affirming that Cross is the core of their team. Hearing their heartfelt words, a small, hopeful smile finally breaks through Cross's despair. His resolve reignited, he realizes there must be a way for him to contribute to their success. The priestess notes their journey has lasted a year, a fact the thief finds hard to believe. They gaze upon the jagged, lightning-scarred landscape surrounding their final destination. The hero declares with grim satisfaction that their long quest is finally reaching its end. Before them looms the imposing fortress of the Demon King, the culmination of their efforts. Cross breaks the silence, asking the hero if he will ascend to the throne upon their return. He then turns to the women, curious about their own plans for life after the war. Each woman shares her future goals, with the witch pointedly including Cross in her plans. Cross voices his naive assumption that they all wanted to marry the hero, earning a swift denial. His innocent musing about marriage sends a dark, possessive shockwave through the entire party. A flustered hero quickly changes the subject, demanding to know what Cross plans to do. Cross thoughtfully considers his future, imagining a peaceful life traveling or running a diner. The hero enthusiastically suggests a private celebration for just the two of them after the war. The sage's eyes light up, completely thrilled by the hero's amazing offer, but the women immediately protest, fiercely demanding to be included in the celebration. Oblivious to the tension, Cross cheerfully invites everyone to a massive party. Motivated by their future plans, the entire party charges forward, ready to end the war. Their journey culminates as they finally step into the Demon King's throne room. A skeletal ruler greets them from his throne, nonchalantly commenting on their destructive path. The hero responds with a cold glare, making his own deadly intentions perfectly clear. The Demon King rises to his feet, issuing a final challenge as the party braces for the ultimate confrontation. The hero charges forward, weathering a magical assault from the Demon King. With a determined cry, he brings his sword down in a powerful arc. From the back lines, the witch unleashes a devastating blast of magic. Her gaze is sharp and merciless, focused entirely on their target. The spell connects with explosive force, shaking the very foundations of the throne room. The Master Thief follows up, landing a decisive strike against the staggered Demon King. Their coordinated attack shatters the Demon King's form, sending him crashing to the floor. The thief nimbly dodges a retaliatory strike, showcasing her incredible agility. The priestess issues a sharp command, initiating the final phase of their plan. In an instant, holy restraints erupt from the ground, completely ensnaring the weakened ruler. The hero unleashes a final devastating strike against the immobilized Demon King. Cross watches in awe as the hero's attack lands, shattering the Demon King's defenses. The Demon King's form crumbles, acknowledging the overwhelming power of the hero. With the final enemy vanquished, the hero stands victorious over the fallen ruler. He turns to Cross with a triumphant smile, joyfully declaring that their quest is finally complete. The thief and witch playfully demand praise from Cross for their efforts in the battle. Cross responds with a wide, unsettling smile, his eyes betraying a sudden, chilling realization. His gaze focuses on a strange, magical seal behind the throne, connecting a terrible truth. In that single, horrifying moment, Cross understands everything and takes a decisive step forward. He suddenly lunges, impaling the unsuspecting hero with a dark, spear-like weapon. With a strangely peaceful smile, Cross accepts that this was always his destiny. The dissolving Demon King cackles, warning that the cycle of hatred is far from over. The priestess lunges forward to heal the hero, only to realize the true victim is Cross. Frozen in horror, the witch and thief can only stare in utter disbelief. The hero discovers a dark curse emanating from the wound, rendering all healing magic useless. He desperately calls out Cross's name, but the sage is already fading in his arms. The hero's voice breaks, unable to comprehend why Cross would make such a sacrifice for him. Tears stream down his face as he pleads, confessing a world without Cross is one he can't bear to live in. Cross looks up with a faint, wry expression, weakly refusing any last-ditch effort to save him. A single silent tear escapes his eye, marking his final tragic moment. He finds solace in their grief, feeling fortunate to have been so loved. With a final, pained smile, he expresses his only regret, not being more useful to them. His hand falls lifelessly to the ground, his final breath escaping him. In the desolate throne room, the hero party mourns the official death of their sage, Cross Vish. But in a flash of consciousness, his name echoes as his eyes snap open in a new reality. He finds himself kneeling before a mountain of monsters, all bowing in a bizarre apology. A voice explains the cruel twist of fate. The Demon King's curse has reincarnated him as a monster. He stares in utter confusion, a strange new mark on his face and fangs hinting at his transformation. The horrifying reality sinks in as he realizes he's been reborn into the very thing he fought against. Utterly bewildered, he desperately questions his new surroundings and the impossible situation he's in. The horde of monsters remains prostrated in a bizarre, formal apology. Cross internally recaps the impossible sequence of events: victory, death, and now this. He lowers his head, struggling to comprehend his strange new existence. Looking over the sea of bowing creatures, he can only acknowledge the absurdity of the scene. His own predicament is forgotten as a sudden panic for his friend's safety takes over. The complete lack of information fills him with a sense of overwhelming danger. A calm voice suddenly interrupts his frantic thoughts, apologizing for the intrusion. Startled, Cross whips around to identify the source of the unexpected voice. A small horned girl introduces herself as Aura, the current Demon King. The revelation sends him reeling, utterly stunned that this child holds such a powerful title. Cross gives the self-proclaimed Demon King a look of pure skepticism. She quickly tries to calm him down, promising she has no intention of harming the great Saji-sama. He questions her choice of words, certain she's mistaken him for someone else, but she correctly identifies him as Cross. The little Demon King clarifies she means the legendary Rainbow Sage of the hero party, stunning him into silence. He internally panics, completely baffled by the ridiculously cool title he's just been given. She paints a legendary picture of him as the party's harmonizer who defeated the Demon King with no powers of his own. Cross erupts in frustration, realizing her grand praise is just a flowery way of calling him useless. He sighs in resignation, accepting that his life is just one giant misunderstanding after another. Setting his confusion aside, he demands she explain what is actually going on. Using a simple diagram, she reveals the previous Demon King's curse backfired, accidentally reincarnating Cross instead of the hero. The little Demon King bows deeply, offering a profuse apology for the colossal mistake. Cross wearily accepts her explanation, his mind solely focused on returning to his party. She offers him a hand mirror, insisting he'll understand everything once he sees his reflection. He cautiously peers into the glass, his eyes widening at the unfamiliar markings on his face. The sage reels back in shock, stunned by how unexpectedly cool his new appearance is. Aura blushes, shyly admitting that she finds his monster form rather handsome. His brief moment of confidence shatters as he worries his new look is considered ugly among monsters. Cross grapples with the bizarre realization that his reincarnation has made him significantly more attractive. The Demon King sternly reminds him of his new status as a monster, an enemy to all humans. He calmly considers her words, thoughtfully admitting he never really held a grudge against monsters anyway. Aura dramatically declares she's prepared to die at his hands to prove her sincerity. His calm acceptance only deepens her admiration, leaving her in awe of his magnanimity. Cross simply smiles, reassuring the young Demon King that he has no reason to harm her. She then drops a bombshell, revealing that a full decade has passed since his death. The sage is floored by the news, struggling to grasp that 10 years have gone by in an instant. He numbly asks his new age, only to be told he is technically 0 years old. The time skip sends a jolt of panic through him, as he frantically worries about his friends. But his urgent questions are interrupted by a loud stomach growl, as Aura cheerfully suggests they eat first. They're led to a massive empty dining hall, highlighting the strange solitude of his new home. An exquisite meal is served, giving Cross his first taste of the Monster Kingdom's cuisine. Aura encourages Cross to savor his very first meal in his new life. The first bite sends a jolt of pure ecstasy through his entire body. His mind races with questions, completely captivated by the incredible quality of the food. The meal is so life-changing, he's momentarily glad to have been reborn as a monster. The young Demon King is delighted that the cuisine suits his palate. He realizes that human food seems crude and unrefined in comparison. His immediate thought is a desire to share this amazing experience with his former party. When offered a second helping, Cross eagerly accepts without a moment's hesitation. As he sips his tea, a sudden and important realization dawns on him. The Demon King watches with a nervous expression, waiting to hear his profound discovery. He comes to a profound conclusion. Monsters didn't lose to humanity. The hero simply defeated their king. Aura then leads him to a balcony, revealing the sprawling, magnificent city of monsters. Cross observes the bustling streets, realizing the city is even larger than the human capital. With newfound resolve, he declares his decision to live his new life as a monster. A sudden worry crosses his face as he asks if this means he'll have to fight humans. The young Demon King smiles gently, quickly reassuring him that combat is unnecessary. She then turns to him with a serious expression, confessing that she has a dream. Her ambitious goal is to establish trade and diplomacy between the two warring races. With fierce determination, she declares her ultimate desire to create a world free of conflict. Cross can only stare in stunned silence, completely taken aback by her noble vision. Her words resonate deeply with Cross, echoing a familiar hope. He remembers his old party, realizing their dream was the very same future Aura described. A new sense of purpose ignites within him, believing he can still make a difference. The former sage turns to the young Demon King, his decision already made. With newfound passion, Cross eagerly offers to help her achieve her incredible goal. Aura is visibly moved by his sincerity, accepting his hand in a pact. The young ruler is left blushing, stunned that someone would so readily support her vision. Cross smiles, seeing this as a new path to stand beside his friends once more. She formally requests his aid, solidifying their unexpected alliance. And so a new journey begins, with a shared dream of peace guiding their way. 10 years later, the hero party makes a solemn pilgrimage to Cross's final resting place. The hero greets his fallen friend, noting with painful precision that 10 years and 184 days have passed. The master thief fondly recalls his incredible cooking, a bittersweet reminder of their shared journey. The priestess offers a quiet apology, her busy schedule keeping her from visiting as often as she'd like. The witch muses aloud, hoping their rare gathering brings some measure of joy to their departed friend. They sit in a somber silence, a quiet vigil held for the friend they all dearly miss. His grief turns to a quiet anguish as he questions why Cross chose to leave them all behind. With a new grim resolve, he announces they have something important to report to their fallen sage. His face twists in fury as he makes a dark vow to completely exterminate every last monster. The women share his sentiment, knowing Cross would disapprove but unable to let go of their burning hatred. The hero declares that in the world Cross protected, monsters have no right to exist, setting the stage for a tragic reunion. Meanwhile, Cross begins his new life, pondering how to achieve peace when he knows nothing about his new kin. His first step is to study, but he's immediately swarmed by adoring monster girls who won't stop calling him Sage Sama. The constant fawning makes it impossible for him to concentrate on his research. Overwhelmed by the noise, he finally erupts in frustration, demanding they quiet down. Left alone with his thoughts, he questions the very title everyone has given him, feeling completely lost. He sinks onto his bed in despair, convinced he's an idiot who can never meet the lofty expectations placed upon him. A new question pops into his head, adding another layer to his existential crisis. He realizes he doesn't even know the name of the monster race he was reborn into. Aura conveniently appears to inform him that he has been reborn as a member of the Necronia race. Aura reveals his new race is a powerful hybrid of undead and demon. Cross has a moment of panic upon realizing he is in fact technically dead. She elaborates that he's a specific type of undead, one brought back by magical power. However, Aura warns him that his mixed heritage means he isn't truly immortal. The sage slumps in disappointment, but the Demon King quickly offers a word of comfort. His interest is suddenly piqued by the possibility of having regenerative powers. Aura confirms that his new race is legendary for its incredible healing abilities. Cross impulsively grabs a knife to test this theory, earning a swift scolding from the Demon King. She admits that the Necronia are so rare, they are spoken of only in myths. These legends paint a grand picture of the Necronia as pioneers who brought peace to the world. Cross feels the immense pressure of his new race, vowing to live up to the body that was meant for the hero. Aura gently tries to ease his burden, reminding him that the legends are just old stories. Their quiet moment is suddenly interrupted by a knock and an uninvited guest. A stern-faced woman in full armor enters the room, introducing herself as Knight Libel. The knight announces she has an important matter to discuss with the Demon King. Her sharp, disapproving gaze immediately falls upon Cross as he sips his tea. Libel suddenly erupts, declaring that humans are scum who should be kept far away. Unfazed, Aura calmly defends Cross, reminding the knight that he is a victim who deserves respect. The sage winces, finding the insults from a humanoid monster sting far more than he expected. The knight continues her furious rant, insisting Cross is a traitor who will inevitably betray them all. The knight tearfully declares that she is the one who should be by the Demon King's side. Aura tries to de-escalate the situation, calling out to the knight to stop. To Cross's surprise, the furious knight immediately stands down at her master's command. Completely lost, the sage turns to the Demon King for guidance on how to handle this. Libel's face darkens as she draws her sword, issuing a deadly threat to the former human. She then proposes that this is the perfect chance for Cross to prove his trustworthiness to the public. Cross awkwardly praises the knight's loyalty, much to the Demon King's exasperation. A sly smile crosses Aura's face as she suddenly comes up with a clever idea. Following the Demon King's lead, the knight points her sword at Cross and challenges him to a duel. The former sage can only stare back in wide-eyed, silent terror. Libel smirks, issuing a condescending challenge for the fake sage to prove his worth. The Demon King immediately protests, shocked by the knight's sudden declaration. She frantically tries to stop the duel, warning her knight against making such a reckless promise. But to her surprise, Cross calmly stands and accepts the knight's challenge. He explains that to help Aura achieve her dream, he must first earn the respect of her people. His selfless reasoning leaves the young Demon King flustered and touched by his dedication. The duel is set in a massive coliseum, packed with an eager crowd of monsters. Aura nervously observes the massive turnout, realizing just how famous the sage has become. She quietly expresses her regret, admitting she never wanted to put him in this position. The sage's popularity is so immense that vendors are already selling merchandise in his honor. The monster crowd goes wild, placing all their bets on their new idol, the sage. An aide recalls that in the human world, Cross was dismissed as the party's useless dead weight. Aura anxiously asks her aide if letting this duel happen was the right call. The aide coldly replies that she believes Cross has absolutely no chance of victory. His opponent is Libel, a legendary knight whose power is said to rival the former demon generals. Despite the grim odds, the young Demon King watches with a gentle, trusting gaze. Cross steps into the arena, resolving to simply observe the situation for now. Libel immediately taunts him, mocking his nervous expression as he visibly gulps. The former sage is hit with instant regret, realizing the massive crowd means he can't back down now. The knight warns him to make it a good show, as his performance reflects on the Demon King herself. With the blow of a whistle and the wave of a flag, the duel officially begins. Libel explodes into motion, her sword a blur as she closes the distance in an instant. The knight lunges forward with fierce determination, aiming to end the fight quickly. She unleashes a devastating strike that tears up the arena floor, shocking the former sage. Cross narrowly dodges the attack, ducking just under the knight's powerful swing. He's stunned by her incredible speed, realizing he's completely outmatched in a direct confrontation. His survival instincts kick in as he immediately decides to create some distance. The knight scoffs from afar, mocking the so-called sage for turning tail and running. But as he flees, he looks back in horror at the knight's outstretched hand. An invisible force slams into the back of his head, sending him stumbling forward. Cross grits his teeth, realizing his opponent is far more than just a master of the blade. With a menacing grin, the knight reveals her magical prowess, summoning orbs of dark energy. She unleashes a relentless volley of magical projectiles determined to overwhelm him. The former sage frantically weaves through the barrage, narrowly avoiding each blast. Libel mocks his desperate retreat, reminding him there's no hero to come to his rescue this time. A stray shot finally connects, sending a jolt of energy through Cross's body. But instead of falling, the wound on his side begins to glow as his regenerative powers kick in. The aide notes that Cross's eyes have witnessed countless legendary battles from the sidelines. This experience honed his perception, giving him the ability to discern any movement. She concludes that his constant insecurity forced him to develop this incredible, overlooked talent. The aide notes that the previous Demon King wasn't weak enough to lose while carrying dead weight, a clear jab at Cross. She acknowledges that despite this, he is undeniably a genuine member of the legendary hero party. Cross's eyes sharpen with focus as he realizes he can perfectly track all of his opponent's movements. Another series of powerful explosions rips through the arena, showcasing the knight's immense power. The monster crowd murmurs in awe, certain that the sage stands no chance against such terrifying, destructive force. From the royal box, the young Demon King watches with a worried expression, her aide remaining impassive. Cross briefly wonders if he's truly as weak as he's always believed, even as he dodges for his life. Libel scoffs at the boring fight, preparing to end it with another simple magical assault. The former sage takes cover behind a pillar, using the arena's structure to evade the onslaught. In a sudden burst of speed, Cross lunges from his cover, catching the overconfident knight completely by surprise. Libel scoffs, realizing his grand counterattack is nothing more than throwing pebbles. She effortlessly bats away a projectile, completely unfazed by his desperate move. The knight dismisses his strategy as pathetic, believing he can only hide in the dust cloud he created. A volley of small rocks hurtles through the air in a seemingly futile assault. One of the stones bounces harmlessly off her armor, failing to even leave a scratch. She questions his pointless tactic, wondering if he's simply trying to stall for time. As more stones fly, her expression hardens with growing irritation. Annoyed by the smokescreen, she unleashes a powerful blast of magic to clear the air. The explosion tears through the dust, intending to reveal her cowering opponent. But bursting through the smoke is Cross, his eyes blazing with intent as he closes in for a surprise attack. Libel raises her sword for a finishing blow, certain that his proximity has sealed his fate. But Cross is already on the move, having cleverly used her own explosion as a smokescreen to reposition. He lets out a determined roar, pushing past his limits in a desperate gamble. In a shocking turn, his counterattack lands, drawing first blood from the surprised knight. Cross grits his teeth, the strain of the battle etched across his face as he presses his advantage. From the stands, the Demon King's aide gasps, completely stunned by the sage's unexpected move. The knight, however, finds this turn of events rather interesting. A confident smirk spreads across Libel's face, acknowledging his surprising skill. Cross suddenly grabs her arm, catching her completely off guard and neutralizing her weapon. He reveals his strategy, having exploited her overconfidence and the wide arc of her swing to get inside her guard. With a flick of his wrist, he sends her sword flying through the air, completely disarming her. He follows through with a powerful throw, seizing a smaller blade in the process. In a stunning reversal, Cross holds the blade to her throat, ending the duel in a single, fluid motion. The knight can only stare in disbelief, her pride shattered by the unexpected defeat. A heavy thud echoes through the arena as the knight hits the ground hard. Libel realizes that losing her sword was only the beginning of her humiliation. From the stands, the Demon King officially declares the Rainbow Sage Cross as the victor. The knight finally concedes, acknowledging that she has been thoroughly beaten. Cross breathes a sigh of relief as officials restrain the furious knight, who struggles against them, refusing to accept the outcome. He kneels respectfully, offering her sword back as she pleads with the Demon King for another chance. Cross looks up, startled by the sudden sound filling the arena. The entire Colosseum erupts in a thunderous chant, hailing him as their sage. The monster crowd goes wild, celebrating the victory of their new hero. He stands alone in the center of the arena, the roar of the crowd fading to a distant echo. Clutching his fist, he finally realizes that his time with the hero party was not in vain. A genuine heartfelt smile spreads across his face, a mix of relief and vindication. Back in the infirmary, a frantic Demon King rushes to his bedside, desperate to check on his condition. He casually pats his head, nonchalantly asking if his missing arm will grow back. The horrifying possibility that it won't suddenly dawns on him, his casual demeanor vanishing. Aura can only scold him for his recklessness, pointing out the very obvious consequence of his duel. He frantically asks the Demon King for a solution to his missing limb. To his amazement, a new hand begins to sprout from the stump, albeit comically small. The young ruler stares in awe, completely mesmerized by his incredible healing ability. Their moment is interrupted by the furious knight, who storms in demanding to know why she lost. Cross turns away with a knowing look, quietly acknowledging the truth in her claim of superior strength. Libel continues her tirade, insisting she is far more powerful than the former sage. The Demon King sighs in exasperation, chiding her knight for being a sore loser. The knight furiously refutes the idea that she was ever careless in their fight. Cross calmly explains that he simply took advantage of the arrogance that comes with great power. He fondly remembers that even the hero Claude had similar weaknesses, though he could never defeat him. He casually explains that sacrificing his hand was the only way to win, acknowledging the knight's incredible power. His nonchalant attitude leaves both the knight and the Demon King completely speechless. With a confident smile, Cross asks if he has finally earned their trust. He then eagerly offers to help the Demon King with her work, ready to fulfill his promise. The knight grits her teeth, struggling to admit that she might, possibly, acknowledge his combat skills. She finally relents with a smirk, finding his selfless dedication strangely admirable. Cross gently reminds the concerned Demon King of his vow to help her achieve her dream. Libel suddenly suggests they entrust a certain important matter to the former sage. The Demon King's aide agrees, admitting they have no other suitable candidates for the task. But Aura immediately objects, believing the mission is far too dangerous and that Cross is not the right person for the job. The Demon King formally makes a request of Cross, who looks on with a smile. She explains that not everyone supports her vision of peace between monsters and humans. In fact, remnants of the previous Demon King's army are plotting a coup at any moment. The knight is immediately outraged at the prospect of working with the former human. To her horror, the Demon King cheerfully assigns her to accompany Cross on the mission. Aura tasks the former sage with suppressing the rebellion before it can escalate. He confirms the rules of engagement, and she reluctantly agrees that force may be necessary. Sometime later, the unlikely pair scout out the enemy's fortress from a nearby cliff. While on lookout, Cross takes a moment to appreciate his high-tech thermos, feeling a pang of nostalgia for his old party. His moment of peace is interrupted by an irritated Libel who questions his casual attitude on their mission. She reminds him of his status as her victor and the one entrusted with the Demon King's dream. The knight points towards their target, impatiently noting the enemy base is just ahead. Cross calmly offers her a drink, explaining that one can't fight on an empty stomach. The knight cautiously takes a sip, her eyes widening in surprise at the incredible taste. Trying to maintain her tough exterior, she dismisses the drink as a meager meal. But her composure breaks as she immediately demands a refill, admitting it's delicious. Completely won over, she suggests he become the royal chef, a clearly self-serving proposal. With the snack break over, Cross announces he's going to scout the enemy hideout once more. He observes the fortress, hoping to find a way to resolve the situation without resorting to violence. Suddenly, a projectile strikes the rock beside his head, making him realize he's been spotted from an impossible distance. Through his binoculars, Cross spots a lone figure emerging from the enemy fortress. He recoils in shock as he identifies the figure as a centaur-like monster of incredible speed. Realizing the immediate danger, he grabs Libel and orders a tactical retreat. But before they can move, the swift centaur is already behind them, mockingly identifying them as Aura's lackeys. Back at the castle, Aura briefs them on the rebellion, underestimating the group's current strength. Cross flashes back to the encounter, still reeling from the enemy's impossible velocity. The young Demon King warns them that there is one person in particular they must be wary of. She reveals their main adversary is Gustar, a centaur renowned for being faster than the wind. Cross and Libel stand together, a silent understanding passing between them as they steel themselves for the mission. Elsewhere, Gustar rallies his diverse group of rebels, preparing to defy the Demon King's authority. Cross strides into the rebel town, unfazed by the nervous murmurs of the surrounding monsters. He questions a subordinate's hesitation, reminding them of their mission and their loyalty to the Demon King. He turns to Libel with a reassuring smile, clarifying his intentions are not what she thinks. But the knight is already seething, her hand on her sword as Cross urges her to stand down. Libel glares at him, demanding to know why he's interfering with her battle-ready stance. With a confident grin, Cross reveals his plan to resolve this peacefully and further the Demon King's dream. He explains that monster-on-monster conflict will make their ultimate goal of peace an impossible pipe dream. The knight stands in silent contemplation, his words clearly having an effect on her. Cross boldly approaches the rebel leader, directly asking Gustar for the reason behind his opposition. He then tries to de-escalate the tension, insisting that total annihilation isn't the only answer. The rebel leader reveals his simple desire to run free, a goal he believes requires humanity's complete annihilation. He scoffs at the former sage's naive ideals, questioning if peace is even a remote possibility. Gustar explains the biological power gap, certain that humans would only seek to control monsters in the name of equality. His followers rally behind him, reminding Cross that humans have a long history of betrayal. The crowd erupts in laughter, mocking the very idea that a trustworthy human could ever exist. With a confident grin, Gustar issues a challenge. Find someone faster than him and he might consider listening. Cross sees his opportunity, proposing a one-on-one race to settle their disagreement once and for all. The centaur is momentarily stunned into silence by the audacious proposal. His shock quickly turns to manic excitement as he eagerly accepts the duel, believing it's an easy win. Cross lets out a weary sigh, wondering why monsters always insist on such dramatic solutions. Libel is stunned to see the rebels have even set off fireworks for the occasion. The entire town is abuzz with excitement, treating the race like a public holiday. She can't comprehend the scene, as the serious confrontation has turned into a full-blown festival. Gustar and Cross finally arrive at the starting line, ready to begin their high-stakes competition. The rules are laid out simply. The first one to touch the tree on the distant hill wins. Gustar flashes a menacing grin, while Cross meets his gaze with unwavering resolve. As the race starts, the centaur explodes forward, immediately leaving the former sage behind. Libel watches in shock as Cross falls behind instantly, while the rebels celebrate their leader's early lead. Gustar effortlessly pulls ahead, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake for Cross to eat. The centaur's powerful legs propel him forward at a speed that seems impossible to match. Gustar glances back in shock, realizing Cross has latched onto him with a rope and is being dragged along. From the sidelines, an outraged Libel points an accusing finger, calling out his unconventional tactic. The centaur furiously demands to be released, annoyed by the sudden dead weight. Flying through the air, Cross cheekily reminds him that using tools was never against the rules. He slams into a rock but holds on tight, ignoring Gustar's warning that he's risking his life. With fierce determination, Cross declares that he's already died once and will endure anything to change the world. The centaur scoffs at his grand ambition, his powerful hooves pounding the ground. Gustar's face twists in anger as he questions why monsters should have to endure for humanity's sake. He reveals the painful truth behind his beliefs, having lost many friends in the war against humans. The rebel leader declares that even reincarnated, Cross will always be human and will only ever care for his own kind. Cross tightens his bloody grip on the rope, fiercely denying the centaur's cynical view. He flashes back to the endless war, remembering the cycle of death that consumed both sides. With a passionate cry, he declares his unwavering belief that humans and monsters can find happiness together. Gustar snarls, completely dismissing the former sage's idealistic vision as a childish fantasy. The centaur accelerates, vowing to crush Cross's hope and his cheap tactics along with it. While being dragged, Cross calmly acknowledges he can't win this race on his own power. He reveals a hidden firework, igniting it against the rough ground with a quick scrape. A quick flashback reveals he purchased the firework from a vendor before the race even began. The firework erupts, snapping the rope and launching him through the air like a human cannonball. Gustar is completely stunned by the sudden explosion, watching in disbelief as Cross soars past him. As he tumbles through the air, he acknowledges that he can't achieve his dream alone. With a desperate shout, he makes an impassioned plea for Gustar to become his friend. The former sage smashes into the finish line with a bone-jarring impact. Lying battered at the base of the tree, he weakly asks if his reckless gamble paid off. The centaur can only stare in utter disbelief, completely floored by the absurd turn of events. Cross casually reassures him from the ground, confident his regenerative powers will handle the damage. Gustar finally snaps, furiously questioning the sanity of using an exploding firework for propulsion. The centaur's anger suddenly breaks, a single laugh escaping his lips. His disbelief turns into hysterical laughter, completely won over by the sage's sheer audacity. With a newfound respect, he realizes Cross is promising to show him an extraordinary future. Cross smirks, expressing his approval of the centaur's change of heart. Convinced, Gustar turns and pledges his loyalty, offering to join the sage's team. He flashes a sharp-toothed grin, playfully addressing Cross by his grand title. The former sage humbly asks the centaur to just use his real name. Meanwhile, in a grand hall, a court official delivers a formal report to his king. He kneels in the vast, empty throne room, waiting for a response that never comes. After a moment of heavy silence, the official nervously takes his leave. The camera pans to the throne, revealing the hero Claude, who cynically recites his many titles. Slumped in his royal seat, he questions his own purpose in this new world. His expression darkens as he comes to a horrifying conclusion. Humanity itself deserves to be destroyed. The master thief suddenly appears, demanding to know why the hero is spouting such nihilistic nonsense. She confronts him in his throne room, where he acknowledges her unusual visit. Mary passionately reminds him that they could never destroy the world Cross gave his life to protect. Claude offers a weary apology, dismissing his dark thoughts as a moment of exhaustion. The thief lets out a long, exasperated sigh, clearly unconvinced by his excuse. As she turns to leave, he asks what's got her so worn out. She playfully sits on his lap, making a bold offer to comfort him. The hero coldly rejects her advance, seeing right through her teasing facade. Hopping off his lap, she decides to get straight to the real issue. With a knowing smirk, she points out that he has no desire to be touched by anyone but their fallen sage. The hero furiously reminds her they promised to stay away from Cross's family to avoid causing them pain. But the thief sheepishly admits she broke that promise and went to see them anyway. Before he can scold her, she quickly interrupts, insisting he hear what she has to say. She reveals that Cross's parents shared his letters, which were filled with stories about his true friend, Claude. The letters describe their adventures not as a hero and his sage, but as two friends just having fun. The hero is completely overcome with emotion, finally grasping the depth of Cross's genuine affection for him. Mary then reports that the priestess and the witch have already left for monster territory on their own. With a knowing look, she adds that there's one final piece of news to share. The hero grips his sword as she confirms the other women have already begun their campaign of vengeance. He turns with a somber look, declaring that without Cross to hold them together, the hero party is officially disbanded. The master thief offers to accompany the hero with a mischievous smile. With grim determination, Claude announces his new mission, the complete eradication of all monsters. In stark contrast, Cross joyfully raises a mug, celebrating his recent victory with his new allies. Libel is absolutely furious, reminding the celebrating sage that they are still on a mission. The former rebels and their new friends enjoy a massive feast in the middle of the town. Gustar tries to pull the rigid knight into the festivities, telling her to loosen up. Cross interrupts their bickering, offering a plate of food he cooked himself to calm them down. The knight glares at the centaur, firing back a sharp insult to shut him up. Gustar leaps onto a table, defensively arguing that his face is not horse-like at all. Cross explains his interest in monster cuisine as his bickering companions start devouring his cooking. The celebration is cut short as Gustar's followers angrily protest the outcome of the race. Gustar suddenly grabs Cross from behind, a mischievous glint in his eye as he proposes a new idea. He quickly silences his men, reminding them that the results of their contest are final. Unconvinced, the rebels accuse Cross of cheating, forcing him to wonder how to handle the situation. Gustar decides to settle the matter with a show of force, stomping his hoof down decisively. He begins a wild rodeo, bucking furiously as one of his followers hangs on for dear life. As the monsters cheer on the ridiculous spectacle, Libel can only stare in disgust at their foolishness. She takes a long, stressed drink, desperately wishing she was back at the castle with the Demon King. After the chaos, Gustar gives Cross a hearty slap on the back, praising his courage. The former sage stumbles away, looking nauseous but proud that he managed to keep his composure. The former sage immediately regrets his bravado, losing his lunch as Gustar offers a half-hearted apology. Libel approaches the trembling sage, mercilessly mocking his pathetic state. The centaur joins in the teasing, amused by the ridiculous trio they've become. Cross suddenly notices the knight's flushed face and sly expression, realizing she's had too much to drink. She confirms his suspicions by grabbing him, demanding more alcohol as Gustar watches with amusement. He tries to escape her grasp, but she firmly pushes him back, refusing to let the party end. The unlikely trio eventually finds common ground, sharing a raucous feast and celebrating their newfound alliance. After the festivities, Cross sits alone under the stars, quietly reflecting on the day's chaotic events. Gustar finds him, carrying a sleeping Libel, and points out that their mission is far from over. Filled with renewed purpose, Cross declares his plan to unite the monster factions and make their shared dream a reality. Gustar expresses his doubt that their mission will proceed so smoothly. He identifies their next major obstacle as the fire dragon Dreg, a powerful remnant who considers humans mere food. The centaur warns that this particular rebel is especially troublesome to deal with. Cross remains optimistic, but Libel reminds him that he needs to pull his own weight as well. The knight admits that she has also heard of the infamous dragon. She believes the Demon King should have been more cautious regarding this particular threat. Libel passionately argues that the hero would never listen to their pleas for peace. Cross counters, believing that if the monsters are united, Claude and Aura can finally negotiate. He smiles, completely confident that his old friend will understand, because he's a good person at heart. Suddenly, Cross is grabbed from behind, desperately calling out to Gustar for an explanation. Gustar reveals a troubling rumor: the hero has vanished from the human kingdom. Their conversation is cut short by a frantic lizard monster sprinting towards them for help. The creature collapses, gasping that it's one of Dreg's followers and that the hero is responsible. Cross pales as the monster confirms his worst fear: the hero is on the attack. The scene reveals Claude standing victorious over the defeated fire dragon, surrounded by destruction. With a chilling look, the hero dedicates this slaughter to his fallen friend, Cross. A flashback shows a happier time, with Cross complaining about their monotonous campfire meals. He excitedly proposes they treat themselves to a fancy meal in the next town they visit. But Claude replies with a gentle smile, admitting that Cross's cooking is all the luxury he needs. Overjoyed by the compliment, Cross playfully throws an arm around his best friend. The hero sits alone by a fire, lost in the desolate landscape of his grief. He holds a piece of bland food, finding all meals tasteless without his friend. A deep longing for Cross's cooking overwhelms him, a painful reminder of what he's lost. With a sudden fluid motion, the hero rises to his feet, his solitary vigil over. He drags his sword across the ground, his grim purpose now clear. Suddenly, he's confronted by the arrival of Cross and his new monster companions. Claude's eyes narrow with a cold, murderous rage as he finally sees them. Cross stares in utter shock, finally face to face with his best friend after a decade. The hero dismisses their presence, his mind already set on his dark path. Libel reminds Cross of the grim reality. To the hero, they are nothing but monsters to be slain. Cross desperately tries to get through to the hero, revealing his true identity. He explains the new Demon King's desire for peace, but his words fall on deaf ears. In a flash of movement, the hero strikes without a moment of hesitation. His monster companions can only watch in horror, shouting his name in alarm. Cross stumbles back, clutching his shoulder in pain from the unexpected blow. Claude's face contorts with rage, warning the monster to never speak of his fallen friend. He follows up with a devastating kick, sending the former sage flying backward. The powerful impact carves a crater into the ground, a testament to the hero's strength. Lying defeated in the dust, Cross looks up at the cold, unforgiving figure of his old friend. He makes one last desperate plea, finally explaining that he has been reincarnated. He desperately insists that despite his new body, He still has all his human memories. The hero recalls the old Demon King's curse, the very magic that took his friend's life. Refusing to believe, Claude unleashes another swift and merciless strike. He furiously rejects the claim, shouting that his real friend never had such a stupid face. The former sage is completely baffled by this incredibly specific and bizarre insult. He defensively asks if his new, more handsome appearance isn't a clear upgrade. Claude angrily lists his friend's old features, describing a much cuter and less intimidating look. To prove his identity, Cross begins recounting specific, cherished memories from their journey together. He reminds the hero of the simple joys they shared, like how much he always loved his cooking. The hero's resolve finally wavers as he recalls a promise they made to drink together all night. He presents a worn document with a footprint, a final, desperate piece of evidence from their past. With a hopeful grin, Cross eagerly suggests they finally fulfill that promise and go drinking. But the hero remains unconvinced, coldly dismissing him as a monster that can read memories. Claude scoffs at the notion of reincarnation, revealing he would have used it himself if it were possible. Seeing her ally in danger, Libel finally intervenes, launching herself at the hero. She declares him an enemy to Aura's dream, summoning dark orbs of destructive energy. The knight unleashes a furious barrage of magic, determined to stop his rampage. Libel charges forward with her sword, believing she's justified in striking down the former Demon King Slayer. In a flash, Claude effortlessly evades her lunge and appears behind her, covering her eyes. He then casually incapacitates the knight, dragging her away to demonstrate his absolute superiority. With a powerful thud, the hero slams the defeated knight into the ground. Cross shouts in alarm as Gustar is forced to drag the unconscious Libel to safety. The centaur quickly retreats, carrying his incapacitated ally away from the one-sided battle. Under the cold moonlight, Claude stands victorious over the fallen form of his former friend. He slowly approaches the downed sage, his sword held ready for the final blow. Cross looks up from the ground, his face a mask of pain and disbelief. Battered and broken, he weakly utters his old friend's name one last time. The hero's blade stops just inches from his throat, halting the execution at the last second. A flicker of recognition crosses Claude's face as he finally questions the monster's identity. His confusion quickly turns to a new kind of anger as he struggles with his conflicting emotions. The hero presses his blade closer, demanding to know what kind of creature stands before him. A sudden wave of nausea and disbelief hits him, forcing him to cover his mouth. He clutches his chest, overwhelmed by a painful, unfamiliar feeling that stays his hand. Unable to strike the final blow, the hero turns away, his murderous intent suddenly gone. He issues a final, cold warning for the monster to stay out of his sight forever. Despite sparing Cross, his dark vow to eradicate all monsters remains unshaken. The two former friends are now separated by a chasm of grief and misunderstanding. Sometime later, the scene shifts to the tranquil setting of a monster hot spring. The fire dragon Drake, now an ally, gratefully thanks the sage for saving his life. Gustar splashes the moping Cross, trying to snap him out of his post-reunion depression. Cross sulks in the hot spring, crushed that his best friend failed to recognize him. Gustar comments on Drake's impressive recovery, marveling at a dragon's resilience. The centaur celebrates their growing alliance, noting that even the fearsome dragon has joined their cause. Drake flashes a sharp grin, vowing to settle the score with the hero during their next encounter. Gustar quickly clarifies that Cross's true goal is to end the conflict with humanity, not escalate it. The dragon furiously dismisses this as impossible, refusing to betray his fallen comrades for a cowardly peace. The centaur concedes that convincing humans will be just as challenging as uniting the monsters. Seeing his friend's despair, Gustar asks if the overwhelming odds mean it's time to abandon their quest. But Cross suddenly rises from the water, insisting their brief, violent reunion was only the beginning. With renewed determination, the former sage declares that he will never give up on his dream. He passionately declares that he is the only one who can get through to his old friend. Back at the castle, the Demon King greets them with a relieved smile, glad they're safe. She confirms she's already received the report as the unlikely trio stands before her throne. Aura expresses her surprise that they not only succeeded but returned with the rebels as new allies. Gustar quickly corrects her, clarifying that his loyalty lies not with the Demon King, but with Cross himself. The young ruler looks on with a hint of envy, impressed by the fierce loyalty Cross inspires. She then turns to her knight, offering praise for her role in the mission's success. Libel grumbles in embarrassment, reminding everyone that she's now lost to Cross twice. Cross cuts to the chase, asking if the hero's vow means another war with humanity is inevitable. The Demon King begins a briefing, explaining that their kingdom is economically stable for now. The Demon King begins to explain the current political landscape between monsters and humans. She reveals a map, pointing out that while some human nations are neutral, others remain hostile. Aura clarifies that the opposition isn't a coordinated military effort, but scattered pockets of resistance. Cross is immediately alarmed, asking if this means the monster territories are under attack. The aide interrupts, reporting that the other members of the hero party have been spotted across the human lands. She grimly concludes that they are most likely on a quest to avenge their fallen sage. The aide notes this is unusual, as their scattered movements suggest personal vendettas rather than a unified campaign. The former sage is struck by a sudden horrifying realization. He struggles to comprehend why his old friends would embark on such a destructive path. Cross is crushed by the thought that his death, meant to protect them, has only caused them more suffering. He slaps himself hard across the face, snapping out of his despair as Gustar watches in shock. With newfound resolve, he realizes he must let his old party know that he's still alive. He passionately declares his new goal to make everyone allies, earning a gentle warning from the Demon King. Aura reflects that years of peace have made them complacent, stressing the need to unite the monsters quickly. Gustar soberly points out that uniting the remaining rebel factions will be an incredibly difficult task. He then panics over a bizarre rumor about a mummy, leaving his companions completely bewildered. The knight stands in a state of utter gloom, still reeling from her defeat at the hero's hands. Cross tries to lift her spirits, reminding her that she saved him during the confrontation with Claude. Gustar eagerly volunteers to scout ahead, leaving the Demon King to sigh at their chaotic lack of coordination. The young ruler finally leads them to a grand door, announcing their arrival at the royal treasury. The Demon King's aide announces that their liege is waiting for them inside. Cross is surprised to see a new face, identifying her as one of Aura's personal maids. The stern maid with a long, scaly tail orders them to guide her through the Mercurius treasury. She reveals she witnessed his recent battles, even noting his success in subduing the fearsome Dreg. Her face lights up with intense admiration, praising the magnificent sight of the weak crushing the strong. This praise for Cross is immediately followed by a sharp, disapproving glare directed at Libel. The maid mercilessly calls the knight pathetic for underestimating her opponents and losing so easily. Cross realizes this imposing figure is Libel's former superior, who now demands the knight atone for her failures. He tries to intervene, asking her to go easy on the knight who is now comically melting into a puddle of shame. The maid ignores his plea, coldly asking the kneeling Libel when she will finally grow up. The Demon King cheerfully leads the way, announcing their entry into the royal treasury. Cross is immediately overwhelmed, staring in awe at the vast collection of priceless artifacts. Aura proudly presents the collection, while the maid trembles with barely contained excitement. The maid erupts with joy, declaring the treasury absolutely magnificent. She gestures grandly, captivated by the dazzling brilliance of the priceless collection. Meanwhile, a humiliated Libel can only cover her face in shame. Cross watches awkwardly as Aura admits their guide might be a little too enthusiastic. With a weary sigh, the Demon King explains that the maid is completely obsessed with treasure. Changing the subject, Aura asks Cross what kind of weapons he's skilled with. He proudly declares that thanks to Mary's training, he can master any weapon he chooses. He clarifies that he's looking for something practical, not overly ornate. After some thought, he decides a simple sword or dagger would suit him best. His search is interrupted by the sight of a massive barrel in the corner of the room. A spark of nostalgia hits him, as he fondly wishes for a sword just like his old friend Claude's. To his shock, the barrel is filled to the brim with exact replicas of the hero's blade. The Demon King quickly warns him that those are just cheap, mass-produced knockoffs. Cross frantically insists it's the real deal, completely missing her point. She furiously explains that the weapon's terrifying reputation comes from its wielder, not its craftsmanship. Her logic finally sinks in, leaving the Demon King exasperated and Cross looking sheepish. With the misunderstanding cleared, he finally selects a new blade and prepares for the journey ahead. The former sage's attention is captured by a small, unique dagger displayed on a pedestal. The maid smugly compliments his keen eye for interesting artifacts, having regained her composure. She reveals the weapon's name is Ataraxia, piquing the sage's curiosity. However, she quickly dismisses it as a poor choice for a proper sword. The blade is described as a living weapon, one that grows and changes form along with its wielder. The maid calls it a rare but defective piece, as it doesn't immediately strengthen its user. Ignoring her warnings, Cross decisively claims the blade with a confident smile. His choice leaves the maid completely exasperated, questioning if he heard a word she said. He raises the sword, declaring that just like the weapon, he too will grow stronger. The Demon King smiles warmly, remarking that his choice perfectly reflects his character. The maid offers a final blessing, hoping he and the blade become good partners. The mention of his sword triggers a powerful memory from his past with the hero party. A flashback begins with a voice insisting that Cross should have a special gift. The voice belongs to a young Claude, who wanted his best friend to have his most prized possession. The hero had offered his childhood sword, but a flustered Cross refused such a precious item. This prompted the rest of the party to eagerly offer their own treasured equipment to the sage. The priestess comically complained that the hero was hogging all of their friends' attention. Overwhelmed by their kindness, the young sage could only offer a heartfelt thank you. Back in the present, Cross realizes he has always been too dependent on his friend's strength. With his new weapon in hand, he vows to grow stronger on his own terms and for everyone's sake. Filled with a new sense of purpose, Cross declares his immediate plan to find Claude. However, the Demon King interrupts, asking him to attend their educational institution first. She reassures the confused sage that the assignment will only last a few days. He cheerfully accepts the task, embracing his new identity as a monster. The Demon King's slightly nervous smile suggests there's more to this mission than she's letting on. He beams with excitement, looking forward to the school life he was denied as a human. But his high expectations are immediately crushed when he realizes the educational institution is a kindergarten. His enthusiastic smile freezes, replaced by a look of utter bewilderment. A kind-looking teacher with her face hidden by her hair cheerfully calls the class to order. Swept up in the moment, he joins the other students in a resounding cheer, fully committing to his bizarre new role. Cross grimaces, struggling to accept his new, humiliating role as a kindergarten student. Gustar can't contain his laughter, finding the whole situation far too amusing to miss. The former sage is horrified to see his entire entourage has followed him to school. The Demon King's aide, in a terrible disguise, claims she was just worried about him. Despite the absurdity, Cross resolves to be a good role model for his young classmates. He decides to make the best of it, seeing this as a chance to learn more about monster culture. The teacher begins the day's lesson, focusing on the different races in their world. After the morning study session, the monster children cheer, having understood everything perfectly. But the legendary sage is completely lost, clutching his head in academic defeat. He sits dejectedly, realizing that being a kindergartner is far more difficult than he ever imagined. The teacher announces recess, sending the excited monster children rushing out to the playground. As he watches them go, a small hand tugs on his leg, trying to get his attention. A young vampire girl blushes furiously, boldly declaring that she's going to be his bride. Cross accepts her adorable confession with a kind and gentle smile. The little girl is absolutely ecstatic, her face beaming with joy at his warm response. He kneels down, promising that if she still feels the same when she's older, he'll be the one to ask. From the sidelines, the disguised aide observes how naturally he interacts with the young ones. He explains this comes from experience, as his old party often visited orphanages together. A flashback reveals happier times, with the entire hero party playing joyfully with children. Even back then, his friends found it heartwarming to watch him interact so kindly with the kids. The flashback continues, showing a clumsy young Cross running straight into a wall. He immediately bursts into tears as a young Claude is once again blamed for the incident. The young hero can only approach his friend with concern, asking if he's all right. Back in the present, Cross smiles, confirming the aide's observation about his past. He watches Gustar giving the children rides, reaffirming their duty to protect the next generation. Filled with a renewed sense of purpose, he decides to go play with the kids himself. The former sage enthusiastically approaches the monster children, asking to join their game. He's left speechless when they happily announce they're playing a game called Sage. The kids immediately start arguing over who gets the main role, leaving Cross to question his place in the game. A clever child solves the problem by casting Cross as the hero, a role he accepts with a confident pose. Embracing his role, Cross leads his small army of monster children on a quest to defeat evil. Their first target is immediately identified as the evil knight, with a finger pointed squarely at Libel. The knight is mortified as the children swarm her, ready to play their part in her defeat. Libel flatly refuses to play along, but Cross encourages the children to charge forward anyway. Against her will, she finds herself playing the villain, roaring defiantly at her tiny attackers. Gostar makes a grand entrance, taking on the role of the final boss, the Demon Lord. He puts on a dramatic performance, feigning awe at the overwhelming power of the young sages. The centaur then challenges the children to a final battle, fully committing to his new character. One of the kids confidently shouts their support for their new Demon Lord. The teacher watches with a warm smile as the playground erupts into a chaotic, joyful battle. A young monster passionately declares that a Demon Lord must rule through absolute power. Libel is about to scold the child, but Cross holds her back, urging her to be the adult in the situation. Another child chimes in, coldly stating that Aura is unfit for the throne. The young rebel explains that this is the sentiment he learned from his father. The little vampire girl nervously objects, defending the Demon King's honor. But the lion cub doubles down, arguing that weakness invites disrespect and they should preemptively strike humans. The former sage is taken aback, realizing the deep-seated resentment against humans is being passed down to the next generation. Their heated debate is interrupted by the teacher, who calmly announces that it's time for lunch. The scene shifts to a simple but wholesome meal served on a tray. While eating, Cross soberly considers that this aggressive mindset is likely widespread among the monster population. Cross realizes the previous Demon Lord's militaristic legacy is deeply ingrained in the children's worldview. He concedes that their desire for a strong, decisive ruler isn't entirely wrong. The teacher announces a special guest for the afternoon lesson, piquing the former sage's interest. As a child offers him food, Cross ponders how to guide them towards a more peaceful ideology. He is completely stunned when the Demon King herself walks into the classroom. Aura calmly addresses the class, asking for their attention as she prepares to speak. She passionately shares her dream of creating a world where monsters and humans can coexist peacefully. Inspired by her speech, the children excitedly shout out their own diverse and heartfelt dreams. The young ruler then asks them to consider what those personal ambitions mean to them. Her tone becomes grave as she warns that a new war would destroy any chance they have of achieving those dreams. The Demon King warmly praises the children, calling all of their dreams wonderful. The young lion cub interjects with a grim reminder that war would force many onto the battlefield. Cross clenches his fist, vowing to create a peaceful world for them and all future generations. Aura echoes his sentiment, passionately declaring her goal to build a world where everyone can chase their ambitions. With a sharp snap of her fingers, she reveals there's another layer to her grand plan. She wants them to experience the wider world, expanding their horizons beyond their current borders. The young ruler explains that a bigger world will lead to even bigger dreams for them all. From the back, Gustar soberly notes that the demon territory alone is too small for such a vision. Aura readily admits that achieving her dream will be anything but easy, but the lion cub leaps to his feet, shouting that her goal is impossible, a feat even the previous demon lord failed to accomplish. Aura counters the child's doubt, reminding them that she has them, the future generation. With a confident smirk, she reveals her secret weapon, the legendary sage himself. She continues, explaining that she also has powerful new allies on her side. The Demon King then asks the children if her dream still seems so impossible now. Inspired, Cross silently vows to create the perfect environment for her vision to flourish. Her words ignite a fire in the children, who eagerly volunteer to help their demon lord. Even the skeptical lion cub is won over, passionately declaring he wants to share in her dream. Aura humbly admits that she may not possess the sheer strength of her predecessors, but with a sharp grin, she declares her ambition is far greater than any demon lord before her. Cross is completely captivated by her speech, his face flushing with admiration for their new leader. After her speech, the Demon King quietly slips out of the classroom, her posture revealing her insecurity. She cynically dismisses her own inspiring words, calling herself a fraud for her grand promises. Lost in thought, she stands alone in the hallway, weighed down by her own self-doubt. But Cross suddenly appears, startling her as he passionately defends the power of her speech. He insists her ability to connect with others isn't weakness, but the very source of her strength. Aura is taken aback, admitting she feels embarrassed for showing him such a vulnerable side. He reassures her that while she must be strong for her people, she can be honest with him. Flustered, she insists she can't burden him, but Cross seems to have a different idea. With a sudden burst of resolve, the young ruler makes a bold proposal for them to become friends. She then awkwardly clarifies that as friends she can't be a bother, leaving Cross utterly baffled by her reasoning. The Demon King shyly utters his name, her face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and hope. His name triggers another memory, this time of a younger carefree Cross beaming with joy. The flashback continues, revealing a quiet home and a voice longing for his swift return. Meanwhile, the witch from his former party clutches a doll in his image, determined to bring him back. The scene cuts to a village obliterated by a powerful attack, leaving nothing but massive craters.